In today's potato harvest, I'm going to teach you a new word, senescence. You can see all the additional potatoes here that could continue developing. And apparently, if I didn't pull these up, if we didn't get frost in this area, it's possible we could just keep letting them go. Guten gardening, everybody. Well over 100 days ago, we planted 3 different potato varieties in this 32-foot long raised bed. We planted half of the bed as potatoes and half of the bed as sweet potatoes. And I'm out here today to harvest the potato half of this bed. Now, there's a couple of things that you should know. We planted 3 different varieties. The first variety is a Rocky Mountain Russet. The second variety is a Red Maria. And the third variety is a potato that's, in my opinion, quite unique compared to the other two. And it's called a Sharpo Mira. And what makes it unique is actually something you can physically see here on the surface. You see that 2 of the 3 varieties here of these plants have died back. But the Sharpo Mira looks really nice and green. And the reason for that is because it has little or no senescence. And if you've never heard that word before, it was actually brand new to us when we first bought these potatoes. It means that the plant is going to keep growing and not die back until the frost comes along and kills it. So you could potentially leave this in the ground for a longer period of time than the others, and it could keep developing, keep growing. Well, we're about to get 33-degree temperatures here in Zone 5, Wisconsin. And what that means is I'm not going to risk leaving these potatoes out here for a frost. I'm going to go ahead and get these harvested. And we're going to start down at the end with the Rocky Mountain Russet potatoes, see how they do, and work our way toward those Sharpo Miras. And I'm really excited to see how they developed this season. All right, with this bed, hopefully you can see from the angle I've got you right now that we've built this up. So there's a nice big mound in the middle, hopefully creating plenty of depth for our potatoes in here. This is a mix that we've been trying to develop over the last couple of years. And you can see that these Rocky Mountain Russets have definitely died back. And when I compare them, you see there's nothing attached to this. I'm sure there's more underneath. But when I compare this to the plant, you're going to see the Sharpo Miras here in a little bit. You're going to see a pretty massive difference in terms of the look of the potatoes right now. Now, our first season ever growing in this bed before we added all of this mix was a massive potato harvest. Probably one of the biggest potato harvests we've ever done, but we planted all 32 feet with those potatoes at the time. All right, I'm going to give you a different view of the russets that are in here. There we go. One of the things I know about russet potatoes, typically when we buy them at the store, they have a really nice size to them. But for whatever reason, when we've grown russets here, we have not always had the biggest russets, but we have seen pretty nice amounts of production just like this. Take a look at these beauties. That's a lot of potato coming out on this one plant right there. So we've been sitting here. I've also noticed in a couple spots, we've been seeing a couple of these things pop up. Let me see if I can find it over here. Yeah, there's one of our russets right here that was damaged a little bit. So I saw this happen, and anytime I start to see some damage, potential damage happening to our potatoes, to anything from voles, I want to get out there and try to prevent as much of that from happening as possible. So besides these near frost-like temperatures that we hear could be coming our way, that's another reason why we want to get out here and harvest, so we don't get any kind of damage or lose a large amount of our potatoes to any of the critters out here. You know, one of the things that we noticed, ooh, there we go, look at that. That's fantastic. You see the sweet potato vine right here? I'm going to move that out of the way. We also grew some tomatoes. Look at this beauty. We grew some tomatoes right beside our potatoes, just like we did last season with the tomatoes growing beside our sweet potatoes, just to get some advantage of the vertical trellising. There you go. Look at those. Those are fabulous. Yeah, so we had a couple cats hanging around our garden this season. They're not ours. We don't We don't own any cats. And to be honest, we don't really have a desire to own any cats, but because they were around, we suspect that they helped us a little bit with some of the vole population out here. So far, knock on dirt, we haven't seen a ton of damage. Instead, we're getting these beauties out of here. Again, not massive. Ooh, I feel something right in here though. That feels nice. Yeah, pretty good size though, pretty consistent size. Look at that. One right after the other. Take a look at what just came off of this plant. Right here. Oh, I dropped one. I don't want to do that. We're still seeing really nice production with minimal damage, and that's our goal. That's our goal in every single harvest. Take advantage of the plants out here. Get them in before anything comes to town and starts wrecking what we've been growing. Again, it's been more than 100 days. Actually, it's been about 110, maybe 112 days since we planted these potatoes. And the Rocky Mountain Russets are a later season potato, so we know that for sure. I'm just going to bring these over here from the plant, show you what we've been harvesting so far. This is just off about 4 or so plants. They're a late season potato, and everything that I planted in here was a mid to late season potato. That was one of my goals, try to keep them consistent. So that 110, 115 days, it's not a problem. And as I mentioned, when we get to the Sharpo Miras, they could still be growing strong if I let them up until the point of our first frost. Beautiful start. Well, I've brought this up before, but given the nightmare that was last season's potato harvest and the limited amount that we got, we're not living in a nightmare this season. We're living, in my mind, we're living in a dream of sorts, because these have just been performing so nicely for us. Really, I would say, oh, get right down in there. I would say I haven't had a single bad potato harvest yet this season. And that is something that is just amazing to me, to be able to say that there hasn't been a single bad overall harvest. That's what you really wish for. That's what you really hope for, I think, as a gardener, to be able to say that. All right, I think I've got everything down here at the very end. Now I can start working my way across. I don't want to miss any of these potatoes though. I mean, if we do miss them, we know that next season they'll tell us all about it. They'll volunteer to come right back up. And that's not a bad thing. That's a pleasant surprise when you start to see potatoes pop out early in the spring. You know you're going to get some early potatoes that way. All in all, each of them are producing quite nicely. That is, to me, that's an ideal size for us. That's a great size. Yes, they do get bigger, but that's a great size, in my opinion, for these russets. Ooh, oh, look at that. That is amazing. And there's a little worm there who's been helping us out this whole season as well. A beautiful, beautiful set of potatoes off of this plant. Oh, interesting. This one must have been pointing upwards. You can see a little bit of greening on there. A little bit of that solanine damage. But for the most part, we haven't seen that. Again, because we were able to mound this up, really create a nice hill for these potatoes to grow in, so we could keep them underneath the mix and not exposed to sunlight. All right, this has some massive, massive stems. Let's see what we got attached here. I have a sneaking suspicion this one should be pretty nice. Well, I pulled off several, but yes, I'm definitely not wrong here. Some absolutely exceptionally sized spuds attached. Very nice. It's kind of fun too. When you have a raised bed like this, one of the things you're able to do, because you have complete control, look at this, because you have complete control over the mix that's in here, one of the things you're able to do is to create that nice, light, fluffy mix that there's no way I could do this with my hands with native soil. Just get right down in here and look around. It's so easy to work through. That's a benefit of raised bed gardening for sure. We're about halfway through this bed, And the next variety, there it is. Even as we speak, the next variety is this red Maria. And the red Marias are supposed to be a medium-sized potato. Oh, I can feel them right down in here. Medium-sized potato with a really nice bright red skin. They're white inside, but a bright red skin. When I say medium-sized, I'm seeing a lot of consistency right around this. Let's say about 1.5 inches, maybe, in terms of diameter. I think there are probably some still in here that might be a little bit bigger though. But yeah, look at the consistency in terms of size for these reds. And one of the things we read about the red Maria is that we're supposed to be pretty big producers, pretty consistently producing a large number of spuds off of each one. And this first plant, we've got what, about 10 potatoes off of it. There's number 11. Not massive, but plenty of them. And these red Marias, along with the Sharpo Miras, we got as certified seed potatoes from the Wood Prairie family farm. And I think you could definitely argue that the certified seed potatoes have treated us the best over the last couple of years. Although we've done a few pretty good harvests with some store-bought reds as well. We'll see. This one, I will say, the red Maria, out of the 3 varieties here, this one died back before the others. And so I wasn't 100% sure as to the overall quality that we were going to see out of this particular plant in here. So one of the things I should probably also mention, ooh, there we go. That's better. There's another one. I feel it right here. That's nice. I should probably also mention about this is the fact that this red Maria is a brand new variety to us. We haven't grown it before. And the Sharpo Mira is a new variety to us as well. In the past, for our reds, we've typically grown Norland reds, which have performed really nicely. In fact, in that big harvest we did, that first big potato harvest grown in this bed, that's exactly what we grew. We grew the Norland reds, and they did a fantastic job for us. So this is a determining piece here, Beauteous. This is one of the things that helps us determine if we want to continue growing, you know, which variety. Oh, there's a whole bunch right over here. If a variety performs well for us, we keep it going. We save some of the potatoes. We try to grow them again the next season. If a variety fails us, doesn't produce the way we want, we look elsewhere. It's one of the reasons why we're 3 years in now, soon to be 4 years into our Purple Magic Molly potatoes, because we've just enjoyed how well they've produced for us over the last couple of seasons. And I think that's just a piece of advice that everyone should take part in. Ooh, I love it when they come up like that. Look at all the other babies that if we had a longer growing season could potentially come up. Look at all of those. Wow. Still, good production on this one. I think that's a piece of advice we should all take to heart. If something that you love, a variety of something that you love isn't producing well, isn't performing well the way you think it should, maybe it's time to change up varieties and grow something else that'll produce better for you. Hey, this is pretty great. You notice something here? Man, I don't want to speak too soon, but we're halfway through the varieties. Well, 2/3 of the way through, because we're going to move over to the Sharpo Miras, and I planted more of those than any other variety. But other than that first potato, there hasn't been a bit of vole damage in here. This is absolutely an exceptional turn of events. I've shown it a couple times, but here's what I'm talking about, that lack of senescence. You see how green everything is here? How it would just keep growing and growing and growing. This is so uncommon for potato plants. Now this Sharpo Mira is going to be a red potato as well. And I've read that it's been around for about 40 years. Beautiful. See, it's a light red color here. It's been around for about 40 years, and it was created in Hungary. And apparently the production or the development of this potato stemmed from a need to develop drought-resistant potatoes and blight-resistant potatoes. And clearly, given how alive everything looks here, I mean, it's got that resistance down to a T. And given how dry everything was this season, especially early on, it looks to me like we've stumbled right onto a potato that is great for those drier growing areas. So that's what it's supposed to be known for. That's one of the things then, if you are looking to grow potatoes, but you're growing potatoes in an area that is a little bit on the drier side, then this might be the one for you. Or an area that there's a lot of blight, this might be a potato just for you. This feels so weird to be harvesting potatoes that look like they could keep growing for I don't know how long. Usually we're trying to wait until our potatoes die back completely, but I've made that pretty clear that that's not really going to be an option here, especially since we have that frost coming. That's really what would be apparently our limiting factor. So these are supposed to be a medium-sized potato, and these are a little bit on the smaller side for these. I'm guessing that right in here, this is about what we're looking at for the medium. You can see it's a little bit flattened, a little oblong. I would describe the look of these. Yeah, they're pretty consistently oblong versus the round structure of those red Marias. Ooh, oh, but there's a ton on here, and that's what they're saying. I mean, you can see all the additional potatoes here that could continue developing, and apparently, if I didn't pull these up, if we didn't get frost in this area, it's possible we could just keep letting them go. You know, when I looked up this idea of senescence and I was Googling a little bit about it, one of the things that I read was it would be pretty rare for a plant not to have to deal with that, because, you know, it's part of the natural life cycle of these plants is having them die. I mean, that's part of the development process. They should die back. And so that's unique. And then one of the things that I read too, and I'm seeing it right now, they said that these potatoes grow really nice and deep. And that's one of the ways that they become drought resistant, is that they develop pretty deep down, which helps to prevent some of the potential damage. There they are. There they are. Some of the potential damage from drought. You know, when it's dried out those first few inches, these plants can definitely suffer, but that's a benefit of these Sharpo Miras. By the way, if you see the name of this plant, I keep saying Sharpo Mira, depending on where you buy them from, it may look like Sarpo Mira, but it is definitely pronounced Sharpo Mira. That's a beautiful plant to pull up right there. Potato after potato. Look at that. Absolutely wonderful to see. If you're enjoying today's potato harvest as much as I am so far, go ahead and leave a like on this video. That helps us out a lot. All right, let's get back to these Sharpo Miras. All right, we'd love to hear which varieties you're growing this year that are new to you, or which varieties you're growing just in general this year. All right, there is the mother potato, and look at what all she produced right there. That seed potato produced all of these tubers. That is fantastic. So what are you growing? Let us know in the comments. Leave us a comment and tell us which potato varieties you're growing this year, even if they're not new to you. We'd love to hear. Maybe you have a favorite potato that you've been growing for a while that you always get really good production out of. Maybe something that we could, or maybe something you think we should try in our upcoming seasons. There's our biggest Sharpo Mira so far. The interior of the skin is a white color. There's a little bit of a pinkish hue to it, in my opinion. But these are supposed to be really nice for frying, to eat cold in salads. These are supposed to be really nice for mashing, because the longer they stay and the longer they cure, they get more and more floury. They have a lot of dry matter inside. Oh, there's a whole bunch right down in here. So this is one of those that doesn't need a lot of help. That's going to be useful and edible in a lot of different ways. And I don't really care how my potatoes are fixed, as long as I'm eating potatoes. There we go. There's another one that was exposed to the surface. There's our second tiny little bit of vole damage. But I'm going to tell you something. you're going to hear not a single complaint from me. Not after how this is going. Not a single complaint about one tiny little bit of vole damage. No siree. Not after some of the experiences we've had. These are absolutely, look at that. These are lovely. Okay. This is the 6th harvest in a row. Has to be maybe the 7th, where the squirrels have left us a little surprise, a little walnut. I'm not trying to grow walnut trees in here, but I am growing some potatoes. Because they're so heavy and they cover the ground so well, one of the other benefits to this plant is they help to reduce the amount of weed competition, because that foliage prevents a lot of those weeds from forming. I've seen a couple weeds in here. I've seen a couple strawberry spinach plants, I mean, obviously. But that's definitely been some of what we've seen here. There's not really a lot of weeds growing in here anyway. So that's good to note. I think that's a positive for this variety for sure. I really do like the depth that I'm finding these as well. I mean, you can see my hand is down in here a good, what is that, about 7 inches or so before I'm getting to some of these potatoes here on the bottom. So I think that's good to note as well. They're not massive potatoes, but we're getting really good numbers. And on top of getting really good numbers out of here, I mean, the quality of them looks fantastic. Plus there's this sneaking suspicion in my mind. Oh, that didn't bring up anything. There's this sneaking suspicion in my mind that this bed isn't quite as well fertilized as it should be. And so that makes me think, if we feed it a little bit better next season, if we grow them in here again next season, if we feed it a little bit better, we might even get a better bit of production. And given how these Sharpo Miras continue to grow, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one of the biggest harvests we've ever done out of these Sharpo Miras. These are just, I'm really liking the numbers here. Harvesting potatoes is somewhat of a numbers game. Numbers, and then of course size, because you always want to produce a good amount. And oh, there's one more thing about the Sharpo Miras. They're supposed to have really good dormancy as well. So when we're storing these for our family over the winter, I've read, and I'm not going to trial this, but I've read that you don't have to worry about the temperature as much. You still want it to be nice and cool where you're storing them, but you don't have to be as concerned with refrigerator-like temperatures to keep them dormant. Again, we're going to do our best to store them in an area that's as cool as we can in our basement, but that's good to know. And I'm saying that's what we've read. Obviously, with a new variety, I'm not going to sit here and make claims about the potato. But when you're picking a potato, sometimes the rationale behind picking it also has to do with things like storage capacity, because it doesn't make any sense to grow a whole bunch of these potatoes and then have no place to keep them, or not have the ability to keep them anywhere. That's just going to be painful, especially when we're talking about 100+ days of labor. Well, I mean, to be fair, nature did the work, but 115+ days of care and waiting for whatever that production is going to be. You don't want all of that production then to go to waste. I always like to try this at least once to really clear everything away as much as I can, to get the mix out so you can see the depth, see the root structure of these. Can't always do it, and this stuff, this mix that's in here is so fine that clearly it's falling back onto itself. But I think this is really great, because now you can see, I'll just hold this down here, the depth all the way down here, the depth of this plant. When you see what I'm talking about saying this one really produces at a nice deep level. All right, let's see. Let me pull this right out of here. Yeah, you see how far down that's grown? Beautiful. So right now, from what I read on the thermometer, it's about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're somebody who says that fall is your favorite time of year, it's a little bit windy, but not too windy out here. I'm going to say that today is an amazing fall-like day. It feels like fall. I love that. And I do like fall a lot. To be fair, before I truly started investing my time in gardening, I would have said quite easily that fall was my favorite time of year. And I still love fall so much. I love the smells, the smell of the fire out here. We have a couple people who do some bonfires and some wood burning stoves still in our area. I love that smell so much. But with the increased amount of time that we spend gardening, spring quickly becomes that time of year, that time of refreshing renewal. So it's really not as easy as cut and dry, if you will, for me to say that anymore. That's fantastic. I'm loving every single second of this. What an absolute delight to be able to harvest all these potatoes. They're perfect. They're just absolutely stunning. And every time I've done a potato harvest this season, I've talked about how grateful I am. And it's true, it's true, it's true. I'm so grateful for these results. And I know some of you have commented that you've struggled with your potatoes this year. Well, I can relate to that from last year's potatoes 100%. I've been there. So I guess what I would say from that point of view, and this is certainly not flippant in any way. I'm not saying, oh, who cares? What I'm saying is we struggled just like that last year, and this year's a different animal for us. So my advice would be that you keep trying to grow. You keep trying to grow those potatoes. It may be bad one year, and then the next year you're pulling out perfect potato after potato after potato, but you can't know that unless you keep going with it. You keep making new attempts, and you're bound to have some successes. All right. What a great plant to end this harvest on. This was our last Sharpo Mira. Let's see if there's anything else down in here. I don't want to lose even one potato. See if there's anything else down in here. And then I'm going to show you everything we got from this harvest. All right, we got our Rocky Mountain russets, which performed quite nicely, I would argue. Our red Marias, which did okay, really consistent, really nice shape, but maybe not as good as these beautiful Sharpo Miras. These are magnificent, and I am so excited to give these a try. Well, that was an exceptionally fun harvest for me. These Sharpo Miras look magnificent. They are a definite must for our future gardens. I'm sure of that. And one of the things that we've talked about, I did a couple years ago, a sweet potato taste test. Well, we have a lot of different varieties of potatoes, and maybe we'll do one of those this winter. We'll do a comparison of our Sharpo Miras, our Russets, our Red Marias, and the Magic Mollies, all those, so we can give you some specifics as to how they taste. Because again, this is our first year with these two of these three varieties, and I think it'll be worth it to go ahead and take a look at that. Well, hey, we hope you enjoyed today's potato harvest video. We hope you've been enjoying our content. If you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.